I'm coming with another new lesson entitled Political Economy Context and Education. So, to begin with, let me tell you the definition of certain basic terms which we will be using in this lesson. First one is political forces. So, what is political forces? Political forces include the political parties, personalities. The politicians, pressure groups that strongly influence the economic and political stability of a country through their actions and pronouncements. Influencing is something an effect of one person or thing or another, the power of person or thing to have such an effect. Education, as you know, it is a process by which society deliberately transmits its accumulated knowledge, skills, and values from one generation to another. And school, as we speak frequently, is an institution for educating children. So, truly speaking, uh, the political condition of a particular nation or country greatly influence to the education area. Society influence political conditions, and the political leaders coming from society always follow the set ideals and the rules, and through that they can earn certain political ideas such as responsibility, accountability, unity, integration of human beings with values, ideals, and etc. So with those ideals, he governs his state. Since education is looked after by the government, the political conditions of society bring changes in education system. As we know, education helps an individual to achieve political education. So it is said that education is a tool for achieving political education on society. So now let me bring you some more information about the political factors that are influencing in the process of education. So frankly, the governance institutions, the political ideologies, competing interests, both with or outside of the education community, all these things influence the content in the form as well as functioning of schooling. So regarding public policy, let me give you examples from a few countries. In France, everything to do with education is controlled from the center, that is metropole, which is the central government. And in case of United States of America and Japan, their education system are highly decentralized and are often based on the democratic influence and the capitalistic political philosophies of these countries. So coming to India, being a democratic country, the government of India for the last many decades or so has been trying to decentralize the process of education. So since education has been added in the concurrent list, both the central government as well as state government has been playing an important role in taking decisions in the areas of education. Well, the development of curriculum is again greatly influenced by many political factors. Uh, how politics influence curriculum design as well as development starts with funding. Both public and private institutions rely on funding for hiring personnel, the building, and the maintaining facilities and equipment. The will and aspiration of the government with reference to the larger interests of the society, the type, nature, and amount of funding, all these things are conditions associated with the political factors in the larger context. Then what is economic change? Yes, economic change consists of economic condition, economic policies, economic system. All these things are important factors that constitute educational environment. Uh, through improved economy of a nation, it is very much possible to go for collaboration with foreign universities, exchange of the students and faculty members from one country to another country, and taking into consideration the trend in domestic trade, export, inflation, money supply, foreign exchange reserves, growth of industry, agriculture and the service sectors, the state of education can be determined. Depending upon the economy of nations, there is much possibility to provide education loans to pursue higher education in educational institutions located in foreign countries and so on. So as you know, according to the per capita income, all citizens are categorized as upper class, middle class, lower class. And as per their income, they get education either from granted or non-granted schools. And in this way, citizens help the society or contribute in the society as per their income. They provide financial support to education in terms of paying education fee for their children. They invest their money in education and make it concrete with facilities and resources. So in this way, there is much possibility for promotion of education. For further studies, specifically in higher education, students from one country to another country can migrate to pursue higher education, and here the government extend, their help in many forms, and in this way, the society's economic condition influence education to a great extent. So here in this tabular picture, you can see the five different stages of development, moving from stage one, known as traditional society, to the high mass consumption stage. What I want to tell you is that every society the world over passes through five different stages in the process of growth and development. So truly, traditional society is associated with subsistence, barter, agriculture, and slowly, it moved to the next stage, what we call stage two, that is the transitional stage, and it is associated with specialization, particularly in agriculture, then the experience surpluses and the creation of more infrastructure, and all these things help the society able to move to another higher stage, what you call the tech of stage. And particularly in this stage, there is industrialization, there is growing investment, there is regional growth and the political change, and all these things help the society further move to the fourth stage, that is drive to maturity, which is associated with diversification, innovation, less reliance on imports and investment. And finally, the society experience high mass consumption associated with consumer-oriented durable goods flourish, service sector becomes a dominance, and all these things. So, from these things, it is clear that development is a continuous process, and it is closely associated with development of human knowledge, skills, and so on. That knowledge and skill is nothing but education, and from these things, yeah, it can be concluded that there is a close relationship between development and education. So this picture again shows the role played by education in creating innovative ideas and the technologies that creatively help the process of industrialization passes through many stages. You see, through the introduction of mechanical production facilities, through the introduction of a division of labor in mass production, through the use of electronics and the information technology systems, through the use of cyber physical systems, you see industrialization passed through four different stages, and now we are experiencing degree of complexities. So all these things are possible through education. So very interestingly, uh, curriculum development is again influenced by the economic forces. So the point is that curriculum development for in-house training in corporations is, for example, focuses on educating employees for promotions that bring better returns in profit. National financial education expects an economic return from educated students contributing to the country's economy with global competition abilities in technical fields. Um, and there is again a close relationship with education, development, and growth. So let me spell out. Education, I should say, if I have not mistaken, is fundamental to development and growth. The human mind makes possible all development achievements from health advances and agricultural innovations to efficient public administration and private sector growth. So, for countries to reap these benefits fully, they need to unleash the potential of the human mind, and there is no better tool for doing so than education. So 20 years ago, the government officials and the development partners met to affirm the importance of education in development, on economic developments, and broadly on improving people's life, and together declare education for all as a goal. So while enrollments have risen in promising fashion around the world, learning levels have remained disappointingly and many remains left behind. And because growth, development, and poverty reduction depend on the knowledge and the skills that people acquire, not the number of years that they sit in the classroom. We must transform our call to action from education for all, learning for all. So now let me share some ideas about the World Bank's education strategy. Uh, the World Bank's forthcoming education strategy will emphasize on several core ideas, which include invest early, invest smartly, invest in learning for all. So first, foundational skills acquired in early childhood make possible a lifetime of learning. So the traditional view of education is starting in primary school takes up the challenge too late. The science of brain development shows that learning needs to be encouraged early and often both inside and outside of the formal school system. uh, uh, Prenatal health and early childhood development programs that include education and health are consequently important to realize this potential. So, in the primary years, quality teaching is essential to give students the foundational literacy and numeracy on which lifelong learning depends. Adolescence is also a period of high potential for learning, but many teenagers leave school at this point, lured by the prospect of a job, the need to help their families, or turned away by the cost of schooling. So, for those who drop out too early, second chance and non-formal learning opportunities are essential to ensure that all youths can acquire skills for the labor market. Secondly, getting results require smart investments. Well, that is investments that prioritize and monitor learning beyond traditional metrics such as the number of teachers trained or number of students enrolled. So quality needs to be the focus of education investments, with learning gains as the key metrics of quality. Resources are too limited and the challenges are too big to be designing politics and programs in the dark. We need evidence on what works in order to invest smartly. And thirdly, learning for all means ensuring that all students and not just the most privileged or gifted acquire the knowledge and skills that they need. Major challenges or essays remain for disadvantaged populations at the primary, secondary, and tertiary levels, and we must lower the barriers that keep girls, children with disabilities, and the ethno-linguistic minorities from attaining as much education as other population groups. So, learning for all promotes the equity goals that underlie education for all the, for all the levels. And without confronting equity issues, it will be possible to achieve the objective of learning for all. So, achieving learning for all we will be challenging, but it is the right agenda for the next decade. It is the knowledge and the skills that central in the youth acquire today, not simply their school attendance, that will drive their employability, productivity, health, and well-being in the decades to come, and that will help ensure that their communities and the nations thrive. Now let us discuss what is the exact nature of impact of education on economic growth and earnings. Let me tell you, in the modern era, global economy is very much dependent on the advanced technology where considerable emphasis is placed on the contribution made by the human resources, or you can say the human capital to economic growth. The principle is that the relative contribution of every individual to the economic growth depends on their human capital, that is, the education, knowledge, skills, competencies, and other attributes that are relevant to economic activity. So, as a consequence, developing the skills and the knowledge of the labor force is regarded as a key strategy for promoting national economic growth. Looking at the macroeconomic level, a number of researchers across the globe have looked specifically on the effect of literacy on the economic growth. For example, Green and Riddle in 2003 found that literacy and the schooling each influence individuals' earning. Some again in 1999 also found that independent contribution of adult literacy and educational attainment on individuals' employments and earnings. You see, understanding the components that contribute to economic growth of a country was always a hot cake of discussions of economists. Most developed economies has evolved from one based on resources and manufacturing to one based on information, knowledge, and the skills. Growing emphasis has been placed on the role played by human capital, the skills and knowledge embodied in people. Because direct measures of skill have been hard to develop, analyzers have relied on indirect measures of human capital based on the assumption that individuals with more education will also have more knowledge and skill than those with less education. Right? So today, the data clearly tells us that the closest thing a country has to a silver bullet for creating a successful 21st century economy and an improved quality of life in terms of better health, lower crime, citizens who contribute is a dramatic increase in the number of college educated people in its workforce is population. So it is a past time to raise ourselves for the global challenge. we determined to reach a goal of increased education attainment and economic development that will secure our future. So, before concluding this lesson, let me tell you some more information. Well, education is, after all, a human right, as we are aware. And like the human rights, it cannot be taken for granted. Across the world, 59 million children and 65 million adolescents are out of school. So more than 120 million children do not complete primary education. So behind these figures, there are children and the youth being denied not only right but opportunities, a fair chance to get a decent job, to escape poverty, to support their families, and to develop their communities. Since the deadline for the Millennium Development Goals is fast approaching, every government has the responsibility to make sure fulfill the promise made at the beginning of the millennium to ensure that boys and girls everywhere complete a full course of primary schooling. The challenge is daunting. Many of those who remain out of school are the hardest to reach as they live in countries that are held back by the conflict, disaster, and epidemics. And the last push is unlikely to be accompanied by the double-digit economic growth in some developing economies that makes it easier to expand opportunities. So over the last 20 years or so, different governments the world over and their partners have shown that political will and concerted efforts can deliver tremendous results, including halving the number of children and adolescents who are out of school. Moreover, most countries are closing on gender parity at the primary level. Now is the time to redouble our efforts to finish what we started. In today's knowledge-driven economies, access to quality education and the chances for development are two sides of the same coin. Therefore, apart from primary education, we must also set targets for secondary education while improving quality and learning outcomes at all levels. So that is what the Sustainable Development Goal on education, which world leaders will adopt and aims to do. Addressing the fact that an estimated 250 million children worldwide are not learning the basic skills they need to enter the labor market is more than a moral obligation. It amounts to an investment in sustainable growth and prosperity, and the forward countries and the individuals. There is a direct and indisputable link between access to quality education and the economic and the social development. So likewise, ensuring that girls are not kept at home when they reach puberty but are allowed to complete education on the same footing as their male counterparts is not just altruism, it is sound economics. So communities and countries that succeed in achieving gender parity in education will reap substantial benefits relating to health, equity, and job creation. So I tell you, to be sure, the responsibility for providing citizens with a quality education rates first and foremost with national governments, and it cannot replace domestic resource mobilization. So with this, I've come to the end of the presentation of my lesson. So now let me say thank you from all of you.